is good, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new edition of El Boogie and the Bell. Today is a very special edition of El Boogie and the Bell. We are actually going to be putting a lot of time, energy, and effort into creating a more appealing, a more engaging show for you guys. So if you guys are watching our clips and anybody who is actually clicking on long form content, we appreciate you. We're going to kind of blitz through this one. Give us about 20 minutes, man. Hang out with us for about 20 minutes. But more importantly than everything I just said, El Boogie, how are we doing today?
Fantastic, man. It's been a crazy week in sports. Obviously, week 9 NFL season, halfway point through the year. We will get to that later. The World Series wrapped up this week. Shout out Los Angeles Dodgers for taking it home. And there's been some kind of crazy NBA action so far but we're focusing on NFL. But it's been a good week.
For sure, for sure. And yeah, if we have a couple minutes left, we definitely want to endeavor in a couple other sports because, basketball season's about to pick up probably in a month or two from now. And yeah, we have the baseball just in. But anyways, let's get started with Thursday night football. El Boogie, how are we feeling about the Texans and Jets?
Texans Jets, man, it was a
13-21
CJ
Jets.
CJ Stroud, man, I feel bad for him. I feel like the Texans showed how limited they are without all of their weapons on the field. When healthy, they can be a top 3 team in the AFC. Without their weapons, there's just not enough. The old line wasn't blocking for CJ Stroud. But honestly, they could have won this game because the Jets tried to lose. They really did. I don't know if you saw the play where homeboy was about to score a touchdown, drops the ball like right before going into the end zone, like really goofy stuff that the Jets did. Yeah, but the Texans, you got to protect CJ Stroud and get healthy.
For sure. And what I would say is they weren't not having successful drives. It just didn't end up in as many touchdowns as they needed to win the game. We were watching it. It was actually our date night, me and my girl. So it just was an off game. I mean, 11 of 30 for 191 yards. That 191 yards really does reflect 13 points and possibly 22 points if they won the game, but they just didn't win the game. Uh, yeah, just a bunch of random stuff that happened and just a bunch of great drives, especially the last drive. I think Devontae Adams was that final touchdown just to seal off the game. I don't think that the Jets overly played well. I don't think the Jets are making a comeback at all. I just think that they won a Thursday night football game. So, with that said, CJ Stroud, if that was his first week with a brand new set, with a closer something that he didn't start with at the beginning of the season, something he thought he would have throughout the season, I'll give him some credit. Hopefully, they come back with some more camaraderie and prepare for the rest of the season. Saints Panthers. Shouts out to the Panthers. First win of the day today on our beautiful
Man,
Sunday was the Saints beating the Panthers in Carolina 23-22. What do you think of this?
the Panthers won.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
said if I said
My
it
bad.
the Panthers,
Yeah.
yes, in Carolina
The
against the Saints.
Panthers. Man, I don't even like that. Was so surprising to see Bryce Young step up in that moment and win a game and play good enough to win the game. But I don't
Mhm.
think this is a Panthers won the game. I think this is a Saints lost the game.
Okay.
You get Derek Carr back. He's been out for a couple weeks. You have Spencer Rattler playing. You get your starting quarterback back into the fold. Early in the game, you lose your number one weapon, Chris Olave. I think he went out with a concussion in the first half. So then your offense gets stifled there. Alvin Kamara does everything he can. Same with Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill scored a touchdown. Alvin Kamara was giving you production. And it came down to Derek Carr doing what an NFL starter should be able to do. Drive down the field, 2 minutes left, go get a field goal or a touchdown. And Derek Carr was just trash, you know? And I think this is a turning point for the Saints. I think now they got to I think they're going to sacrifice the season after losing 7 games in a row and losing to the best team. Do you remember when we thought the Saints were going to be competitors at the beginning
Not
of the
only did I
year?
think they were going to be competitors, I thought they were going to be the best offense in the NFC. Like the best offense in the NFC.
Yeah.
Like I thought Alvin Kamara and Derek Carr would be the 300 yards and 100 plus rushing yards. 300 yards passing, 100 plus yards rushing every single game. That's 400 yards of offense between two players. and that is not what we got whatsoever.
They fooled us, but I will give them at least a little bit of grace. Rashid Shaheed, he was the wide receiver making a bunch of deep plays down the field for the Saints. He's on IR right now, and he might be done for the season. So you lose that part of your offense, you're going to slow down. But yeah, the Saints lost this game.
I like that Alvin Kamara went for 29 carries, 150 yards, 155 yards. I wish he would have got the tub with it. So,
Man,
but
yeah,
yeah,
like I said, the Bengals are not a good team. So to lose to them, it's you kind of have to
heard no
rub your
noise
Panthers
about
sorry.
this one, but I
Yeah.
like how close the score was. Let's see if the stats reflect it. But we got the Commanders beating the New York Giants 27-22. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, just what I thought. Okay, so they scored 12 points in that fourth quarter. So we obviously went into the fourth quarter with like a 24-10 game. So a little bit of some late scores, but how we feel about it?
Well, one, I think it was a big moment in New York because Daniel Jones threw his first touchdown in New York for the first time in like over a year.
Damn.
The fans had not seen him throw a touchdown in person in over a year. So that's crazy. So I guess he did that today. He threw two. But I don't know. This game kind of worried me for the Commanders. It worried me because you couldn't close out a bad team when you have the lead. This is your chance to take over the game. Like you just said, the Giants did most of their scoring in the fourth quarter.
Mm.
Why couldn't the Commanders close them out? Why'd they let it get? When you play a better team, you will lose a game like that. So if you want to become contenders, like we think you're contenders, you know, good teams beat up the bad teams.
I'll give you some pushback on that one. I think that it was far enough. I have not seen this game, and I do not have like I knew the stats were going to tell me something different than that 27-22. But I'll push back and say I feel like this from a stats perspective, from a Jaden Daniels throwing 15 of 22 for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. I feel like this game had a pretty good pace to protect their quarterback, to protect their players, and I'm sure that they definitely slowed their offense down for the last two quarters and still ended up with 6 points after finishing the first half with 21. Looks like they did some pretty good game management. Maybe they had some defensive switches in that fourth quarter. I'm sure they closed the game out pretty fine. Now, focusing on beating teams and completely closing them out, I mean, hey, they're not the top of the NFC yet. If they beat that Baltimore Ravens team, then I would say, hey, you guys need to be shutting people out because you guys are playing like the shutout team. Baby steps. Baby steps. But there's new faces on this team, got rookies. Love to see Jaden Daniels do his thing. I just want nothing for the best for them. They secured another win. They're about 3 wins away from a guaranteed playoff spot.
I
That's a
don't I
rookie.
don't think it's a Jaden I don't think it's a Jaden Daniels issue. I think it's more either defensive because their defense has given up a lot of points in a lot of games.
Yeah,
They've been in too many shootouts, in my opinion. But I think it comes down to defense and coaching,
for sure.
especially when your head coach is a defensive coach.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to my game of the day, I got the Dolphins versus the Bills. I had to turn off my lovely Broncos to watch something else besides the ass whooping we were getting, and I actually went to the Falcons to Cowboys just to make sure that the Falcons were beating the Cowboys like I predicted. But anyways, off of those games, I ended up on the Dolphins and Bills. I actually turned it on when it was 12-13. It actually ended up being a banger of a second half in offensive points. El Boogie, how are we feeling about this game?
I was honestly surprised that this game went the way it did. I mean, after Miami lost to Arizona last week, I thought even with Tua coming back, I thought maybe they're done. But this game right here showed that they're actually still a really good team, and Tua does get them viable because Buffalo's a good team, and you had it. I think it was a tied game, and then Buffalo went down the field to get a walk off field goal to win it. So I mean, I think maybe too much of the season has passed Miami for them to make a run, but Miami's a good team. So I would say that this game shows that team is viable in the future. Maybe
For
not
sure.
this season, but in the future they're okay.
Now I'm with you. Now this team where it currently stands, and I don't remember if he got injured that year, but I do remember JJ Watt saying I'm sorry. And I'm not putting any Deshaun Watson energy on Tua. But what I will say, are you hearing feedback from me?
A little bit, but
Okay,
you're
hold on.
good.
I hit Discord. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna start that over because this is a really good point. All right. I'm not gonna put any of this man's energy on Tua, but this reminds me deeply of Deshaun Watson, the year that they were the best, worst team ever. You remember that they were a really good offensive team, and Deshaun Watson was having a spectacular season. Their defense wasn't even bad, but the record was like 4-12 at one point. It was like a
Yeah.
really, really good bad team. I think that the Dolphins are going to be experiencing that this year. And instead of Deshaun Watson not coming back for like an MVP slash Super Bowl contending season, he had all those mishaps. I do think Tua can recover from this. I do think that this is a great team. I think that Tyreek Hill had a lot of love for somebody that he was familiar with throwing him the ball prior to the injury. They had number 28. Who is number 28? What is?
Devon A Chain.
Oh
A
my!
Chan.
They got two Tyreeks. This man runs fast as hell. Do you see how fast he moves? He moves
Oh, he's
faster
super
than
fast.
you've seen. This man, that boy be blitzing. I couldn't believe how fast he moved. There was just one time he was running to the sideline and he ran out of bounds, but he ran so fast, like you knew for a fact that nobody was about to touch this man. Like he was clear, I'm getting out of bounds and you cannot dare touch me before I get there. He just moves fast as shit. It's very Tyreek Hill-ish, but he looks much taller. But I think that they're a really explosive offense. I think showing that they can compete against this team just lets them know that we're going to get back into the flow of things this season. We're going to get a good draft pick. And hopefully, due to good energy and the contracts that we currently have, and by energy, I mean good health, next season will be a top competing team in this division, let alone the AFC.
Yeah, I agree.
Alrighty. And then moving on to the Chargers and the Browns. So looks like we have a little bit of a downfall for the Browns, but we got the Browns going 2-7 after this loss. The Chargers versus the Browns. What do we got, Boogie?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Browns. This was your opportunity to save the season, but I think we saw a little bit of the old Jameis Winston today. 3 interceptions. Now, I didn't watch the game, so maybe some of those interceptions weren't his fault, but I have a feeling at least 2 of them were. So I have a feeling. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think they didn't run the ball particularly well, and that's supposed to be a strength of the Browns. Um, they had a long. Jerry Judy had an okay productive day. I just think the Browns. I think the team has kind of packed it in. I think the I think the players just. I think the players after seeing Deshaun get injured, and after having such an abysmal start to the season, even after that crazy win against Baltimore last week, it's clear this team is kind of done. The Chargers did okay. I think the Chargers young folks are really showing out. What's his name? They got sorry, I gotta look it up. Quentin Johnson. Quentin Johnson was a first round bust last year, but he's having a real turnaround season and showing that he can be a wide receiver one. So
I mean, four receptions for 118 yards. You got to put respect on it, and don't forget that he finished it off with a tub. So, um, in the past 2 weeks, Jameis Winston has 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Very reminiscent of a 30-30 quarterback, and that might be who Jameis Winston is. And I'm always going to vote for Jameis Winston to do great things in this league. I got nothing but good things to say about Jameis Winston, but Jameis Winston on the football field will be Jameis Winston. And I don't know if it's defensive scheming, but if most defensive coordinators could look at Jameis Winston and see things that we don't get because we're not the guys getting paid millions of dollars to coach and figure out what are his weaknesses. Only credit I'll give Jameis Winston is that Nick Chubb, a very great running back in the league, went for 15 carries and 39 yards. So we're looking at 2 to 3 yards a carry. We're looking at not probably effectively running the ball at all. And if you're forcing Jameis Winston to look at the field every single play and his first option is not always open, generally that's how you're going to get 3 interceptions on that board because he is not a quarterback who's used to just throwing to his first option. He has options. He's a passing quarterback. He is a pocket passer. Not the greatest look.
Yeah, and I think the O line for the Browns used to be a strength. They used to be a top three O line consistently. Jameis
They were
Winston was sacked 6 times, so you didn't run the ball very well. Your quarterback got beat up. That
might
shows
have
me
threw
the O
out of a
line
scramble.
needs
Might have
some.
threw a couple of those picks out of a scramble. I didn't watch the game, but hey, it's looking like a season that I've seen before from him. All right. Patriots and Titans. We got the Titans winning this game 20-17. What you got here?
You know, I watched the end of this game, and what it looked like was, I mean, Drake May, he came back from a concussion. He played today. Um, yeah, he was the Titans pass rush was just getting to him all game. He was just under duress the entire game. Even on the final play, the Patriots were down 7 points, and he's getting chased around the pocket and throws a ball, just hoping somebody catches it, and miraculously Ramondre Stevenson catches it for a touchdown. Last play of regulation, so they go to overtime and they lose. Um, so yeah, I think it was, the O line not really protecting him well, not giving him time to make decisions, especially for a rookie quarterback. He might need an extra second or two, and it seemed like he was getting a second taken away. So I think I think the Titans defense won this for them, and their offense didn't turn the ball over a ton.
Both of these teams, as far as their seasons are going, I'll give them enough respect to click on these stats, just because you went over a little. Shouts out Mason Rudolph, uh, still in the league. Uh, both of these teams are looking for the, both of these teams are looking for their next draft picks. So, whatever their weaknesses are at this point in the season, they need to really be focused on and getting in the draft and focusing on for their off season. Of course, they still want to compete and win football games. Both of these are draft pick teams to me. These teams are going to be bottom half teams in the draft. So whatever they're struggling with it, they're going to keep what they keep like it. They're going to keep what they think is good, and they're going to move on to this draft and figure out what they want. I'm saying that to say this game does not matter. But it's good to see two bottom half teams compete to the win. But like the situations that you just said, because I didn't watch this game, only makes sense that silly mistakes probably stopped either team from winning or losing this game, right? It's gonna take
Yeah,
time.
yeah, both teams in a rebuild. So
Absolutely.
it was entertaining though. At the end of the game, it was entertaining.
For sure. Now, two teams that shouldn't be in a rebuild, but might actually be potentially considering it. Maybe not one of these teams. We got the Cowboys and the Falcons. We got the Falcons winning 27-21. Now, I want you to talk about that point you were talking about earlier with closing football games, because for the most part of this game, the Falcons were fully in control, El Boogie. And I predicted before this game that the Cowboys were going to win. And the Cowboys were going to lose. And I was correct about that. How do you feel about this game?
I mean, in all honesty, looking at it, it was really a one-score game for the bulk of the game. Um, but I think the Falcons, especially considering that the Dallas Cowboys are a bad team and have been struggling, they should have put up more than 27 points. They should have gotten more than 2 field goals down the stretch um, in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean the Falcons are the better team. Clearly, the Cowboys. I don't really know because I'm looking at the stats and Dak was efficient. He didn't throw for big numbers, but he was efficient and didn't throw a pick. I know he got hurt and they took him out and put in the backup, and the backup was a little less efficient but did the same thing that Dak did. I just can't. I don't understand why this team is so bad. At
This
least offensively, I can understand them why defensively they're not good. They're beat up. Micah's out. Their secondary, their corners are struggling something crazy. Um, but why are they so bad offensively? I don't understand.
this team's bad because they paid $2 million to Zeke and not um $6 million to Derrick Henry. This team looks completely different with Derrick Henry. Period.
Here's my thing. Here's my thing though. Look at the rushing numbers. They ran the ball not like amazing, but they ran the ball efficiently. Rico Dowdle went for 6 yards a carry. Dak had, I guess, 3 scrambles for 30 yards. Dalvin Cook, 2 carries for 8 yards. Again, not big numbers, but they were getting some offensive production.
So $6 million, Derrick Henry would be the difference in a 5-3 record. Excuse me, a 6-3 record and a 3-5 record. That's just how I feel about it. Well, let's say 6-2 because they already had their bye. But that's just how I feel about it. But I just think that was the missing pieces. He needs a superstar, and instead of getting his old superstar that you guys kind of did dirty back in the day, you probably should have just got this superstar who people were looking down upon and looking over, and now he's back to what he was for the past 10 years. Plus more, Derrick Henry. We saw what he did with the Broncos today. Stop. We saw what he's done the whole season besides that Chiefs game. Like, we're talking about Adrian Peterson best season like stat. Like, we're talking real greatness. We're talking touchdown every game. Multiple. We're talking greatness amongst Derrick Henry. Shouts out to Derrick Henry. He's on my fantasy team. We're gonna get to him. I wish we weren't, but we are gonna get to him. All right. Next on the list, we got one of the weirder ones. We got the Raiders getting blown out by the Bengals, 24-41.
So the Raiders were keeping this competitive, but I think the second half the Bengals just took off offensively. Joe Burrow had a great day at the office, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. Honestly, and I think the Raiders' issue is quarterback. It's quarterback 100% because Gardner Minshew is not the answer. They had to put in the backup. They put in Desmond Ridder, who failed out of Atlanta and was on Arizona's practice squad. They went and got him. He comes in the game and throws a touchdown, something Gardner Minshew could not do.
Yeah.
So I think the Raiders have a quarterback issue. I mean, their defense also hasn't been good all season, but offensively, you're stagnant. I mean, old Jacoby Myers had a day at the office, same with Brock Bowers. So there's potential on this team, but you have to nail the most important position on the field, which is quarterback. And right now, they are searching.
For sure. The reason I called this one an interesting or a weird one was because Joe Burrow threw for 5 touchdowns. And yes, he did throw for 251 yards. But Chase Brown had 27 carries for 120 yards. And that's a lot of work. I just think he deserves at least one. One of those 5 passing touchdowns. That's the only reason I called this a crazy one. Shout out to whoever has Mike Gesicki on their fantasy team. 5 receptions, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. I know you ate with that one. I just feel bad that Chase Brown didn't get one of the 5 touchdowns. Like, that's it. That's the only thing that made this one weird to me. He deserved one. Just one. But nothing too much to this. The Bengals are obviously the better team better team. The Bengals have a lot more work to do though, because don't be another one of the best teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. All right.
They have a tough path, man. They have to win out if they want to be serious, which is hard to do.
Boy. And I don't think they've even touched a percentage of the bulk of their own division. So, well, they have. They played the Ravens. Speaking of the Ravens beat the hell out the Broncos, 41-10. And the first half, I would say that the Ravens secondary got exposed. I would say that the offense took over to the point that really, really beat down the Broncos, even their offensive spirit. With that being said, El Boogie, how do we feel about this game?
I watched the entirety of the first half, very little of the second half. The upside, I liked that the Broncos were able to keep competitive through the first half up until that last second touchdown to Zay Flowers before halftime. Up until that point, I really wasn't upset with the Broncos. They got stopped twice on 4th and inches and 4th and 1. We should at least convert one of those. One of those should be a conversion. I think Javonte Williams, he should have extended his arm and he would have got it. But anyway, but our offense competed. And our defense wasn't perfect, but our defense was giving Baltimore a tough time. Like the first quarter and a half, this looked like this was going to be a 40-35 ball game. But yeah, our offense just couldn't keep up. I think this was the first time that showed that we really need good offensive weapons.
Yeah.
Cortland Sutton being the prime wide receiver is not going to get it done. I'm not really mad at Bo Nix. Bo Nix is a baller. He's tough. He's mobile when he needs to be. Sometimes he misses on throws, but he's a rookie, so I'll give him a little saving grace. But when he's on point, when he's on, I think build around Bo Nix. Build around Bo Nix. Get some weapons. We lost to the better team today. This was our first. This was the team's first test, and we lost, but that's okay.
I wouldn't even say this is the team's first test. I think the team played a Super Bowl contending team. The Broncos are not anywhere close to a Super Bowl. I just don't know why it's doing that. Okay. The Broncos are not a Super Bowl contending team and not even close in nature to a Super Bowl contending team. The Broncos are a last seeded playoff contending team. And no, you don't want your team to get beat in the playoffs 10-41, but you want them to get beat 10-24. That's a fair game. So where the gap just got a lot bigger for their playoff hopes, I do want to say that next year it gets even better. I do want to say that it does look like a development. It looks much more than like a development. Doesn't change the fact that they got whooped by a team that's probably going to be competing for a Super Bowl this year, if not an AFC championship, if not at least the second round of the playoffs, which is something the Broncos haven't touched in 10 years. So, with all that being said, focus on that 7th seed and let's move on from there. This team, that's number one guy. That's big dog. That's the big guy of this league. At least this conference. Lamar Jackson, 280 yards for 3 touchdowns. I don't know his rushing, but I could check that, which, let's just throw stats on it. Derrick Henry, 23 carries, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns. Shout out to him to getting his 100. Shout out to him for being on my fantasy one more time. Zay Flowers, 5 receptions, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. Most explosive offense in football. Most exposed secondary in football until that second half. So they're prepared for these lower level teams. But what happens when those other teams want to shoot out with you? What happens when you face the Chiefs again? What happens when you run into the Commanders again? And you feel me? They're a touchdown ahead. And are we going to rely on Lamar Jackson to win it? The secondary, I'm not overly impressed with them, but I am impressed with their second half. That secondary looks very rough. The Broncos shouldn't be doing that to you guys right now. But you guys shut out in the second half. So, and Lamar Jackson, you read the stats I just read. Anybody's winning with that because you don't want me to compare it to the other side. All right, we got 4 more. All right, so Bears, Cardinals, nothing here. But Cardinals are hopefully making a comeback like they should. They should be a good team. Boogie, how we feel about this?
After seeing this game, or not seeing this game, but after checking out the stat, Kyler Murray didn't have a great game, but I think this was a good win for the team. I think the Cardinals, the team, have said, "Hey, we are contenders." They might be. I think they might be tied for first in their division right now. So yeah, I think the Cardinals are really eyeing a playoff spot. The Bears, even though on paper it doesn't look terrible, it was a very underwhelming offensive day. And this is the type of game that's going to call into question the coaching. Do we have the right head coach in place? Because we know that you have talent. We've seen that offense be great, but do you have the right play callers, the right schemes? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they stack up a couple more games like this, and at the end of the season we see them get a new coach. I would not be surprised.
Okay, I like that. This is my final comment on this game. The NFC West Cardinals are the best team in the worst division in the NFC. The Bears, with a rookie quarterback, are the worst team of the best division and still pretty good. The Cardinals still need to do some reflection. Now, yes, this is a good team. This is a good win. This is a great step in the right direction, but you're still the worst team in this division. Nobody's having faith in a second round playoff as far as anybody in your division. Cardinals, Rams, Niners, Seahawks. The fact that the Niners are on this list right now. Yeah, best worst division in the NFC. So you're the best team right now because we still have the Niners who need to play. But this division is just looking really rough. That's all I gotta say about that.
When I think about it, I think the Bears and the Broncos are in very similar situations.
For sure.
Like
I think a lot of these
middle of the
quarterbacks are
pack teams, middle of the pack team trying to make the playoffs. I think the one contrast is with the Broncos. All right, we think the coaching is fine. It's really they don't have enough talent on the roster. Now with the Bears, we think there's enough talent on that roster, but is the coaching where it needs to be? So they kind of have two opposite ends of the coin.
Mm. All right. All right. All right,
But
a little bit more of a quiet game of the day. I've heard nothing about this game, maybe because we're not East Coast or Northeast people. The Jaguars versus the Eagles. I say East Coast too
oh
because it was.
man,
Yeah. Was it a good game? Was it a bad? I haven't heard no news on this.
dude, I was watching like from the second quarter on. This game took a turn. It
Really?
looked like the Eagles were gonna go home. We're gonna get an easy win. They were up 22-0.
Mm.
Jacksonville their offense was having another terrible day. But then Jacksonville gets a little bit of a surge. They go score I think 21 unanswered points.
Mm.
And the Eagles, the issue with the Eagles was that it's I think the coaching. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles have a good season and the coach still gets fired
Wow.
because he went for 2-point conversions I think 3 times and didn't get any of them.
Mm.
He's always like, I want to go for it on fourth down. I think they missed on 2 fourth downs. So those coaching decisions are what helped keep this game close down to the end.
And we're not talking tush push. We're just talking fourth downs.
No, they were. I think some of them were short distance. So they tried some tush push. They did fake a tush push, and then Jalen Hurts ran on the outside. It was pretty smooth, but yeah, I feel like the coaching it was so bad that the fans were booing him, were
Wow.
booing the team as they were going for a 2-point conversion because they just wanted him to kick a field goal. They just
Okay.
wanted a field goal, go for the safe point. So he's too aggressive. So I think that coach is losing a little bit of trust, but the Eagles were just clearly the better team. They pulled it out in the end. Saquon Barkley is freaking insane. He was magnificent in this game. He hurdled someone backwards. Like the play is crazy. He spins around to dodge one guy. The momentum makes him be backwards to another defender, hurdles him, jumps over him from the back. It's like you can't even do that in Madden. That's not even an option in Madden, and he just did it in real life.
The group chat. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm about to look at that.
Man, it's that now. That's play of the week. That's that's play of the week stuff right there.
We might have to
But
upload
yeah,
a reaction on the talk or on shit to the talk on YouTube. All right, the only thing I want to talk about with this game is this looks like the Ravens, even from the player perspective, but just the step down. And what I mean by that, we have 230 yards, 18 to 24, 2 touchdowns from Jalen Hurts. We have Saquon Barkley with 27 carries, 159 yards, 1 touchdown. Got Devontae Smith with 4 receptions, 87 yards, and 1 touchdown. These stats, these superstars, these are the Super Bowl guys. But you take a step back to say, like you said, there was a complete comeback and everything like that. There wasn't that in the Broncos game. I would put Broncos and Jacksonville in the same boat, a similar boat. I would still say Jacksonville's a little bit more developed than the Broncos.
I think Jacksonville's in a worse spot.
Really, I
I think
think
they're in a much worse.
developed as
Yeah, I
far
think
as
I think they're
is
in a worse spot because I think their coach is about to get fired. Their players are not performing. On paper, they should be better than they are. Versus
yeah.
the Broncos, on paper they should be worse than they are.
Okay. Well, fair enough. So, well, yeah. So I would say my overall point is like there's still something misfiring because that offensive power and these stats. There's no interceptions from Jalen Hurts. This looks amazing. That looks very reminiscent of the team that beat a team 41-10. The only difference is this is 28-23. So
I
they got
will admit too though that AJ Brown got hurt in the second quarter, didn't come back for the game, and I did notice their offense did slow down for a bit after he went out, but then Devontae Smith stepped up in the second half.
mm. All right. We got two divisional games left. So this divisional game, both divisional games were amazing. One overtime and one with just a decently horrible game, but at least they tried. But anyways, first the Rams and the Seahawks. Did you watch anything from this game? I chose the Lions and Packers.
I watched the last like 5 minutes of this game.
Okay.
The Seahawks made a push at the end. They made a final push to send it to overtime because they were losing pretty consistently throughout the game. But watching it, I think unfortunately this might be the end of Geno Smith's starting quarterback career.
3-3. Jameis
Yeah,
Winston.
3 picks. It's he. You know he has the talent. You know he has the experience. You know he can put good stuff on tape. But his decision making has been poor. Throws have been poor. I think this is the last time we see Geno Smith as a starter in this league, unfortunately, because he's a great guy. But yeah, the Rams are surprising that they keep competitive even though they don't look great on paper. Puka Nakua got ejected, which really
Really?
screwed me in fantasy, by the way. He got ejected because like a play ended and a guy was like kind of, blocking him still kind of, and he threw a punch and like punched him in the helmet. So
Yeah,
Puka
that's the
got
skill.
ejected. Um, yeah, and that hurt a little bit, but they, their offense kept strong and they got the overtime win.
Mm. Well, I mean, only thing I can say about this game is crazy offensive output from these quarterbacks. 25 of 44 for Matthew Stafford, 298 yards still, two touchdowns, one interception, 21 of 34, 363 yards, three touchdowns, three interceptions. The output that they got on both of these guys, they seemed like there was no three and outs. It looks like there was not one three and out this entire game. But three interceptions, one interception, just holds your team back. Definitely holds the score down. This game looks like it easily could have been a 47-43. um, I don't know. It looks like a very high offensive output, not too much productive running. Kenneth Walker had 83 yards for 25 carries. How many offensive plays did the Seahawks get? They got somebody with 25 carries and they have 34 pass attempts. Like that, like the output was nuts. Um, I don't know. Geno Smith, if you were 5-4, we would feel different. You're 4-5 now. I only hope the best, but you, Teddy Bridgewater, there's just a couple names, Gardner Minshew. There's just names that I could come up with where it's like you could secure the job, but you don't secure a future for the franchise. And he did earn it and he did get it. And he's one of those underpaid quarterbacks because he understood who he was in this league. But there is certain expectations when a franchise considers moving forward or this or that. So if you're underperforming, it's, we only want to be the first round playoff exit team so much. Like something has to happen eventually. So I think he's going to get the bottom end of the stick or the short end of the stick after this offseason. Is he going to get benched? Sure, but I think he'll be back this season. I don't think I don't think 15 teams in the league have a better option than Geno Smith. With that being said, nobody just wants to get bounced out in the first round of the playoffs. So, and if they don't make the playoffs, then it's like, hey, we'd rather take our chance with a rookie. Last game, El Boogie of the night. We got the Lions versus the Packers. This was gonna be my game of the week, but looks like the Seahawks and Rams had a better ending. And also for that time period, I think, yeah, that was the other. Oh, I guess the Jags and Eagles could end up being a better game. This game sucked way more than it should have. But it was still entertaining to see the Lions' dominance. How do you feel about this game?
This game, I think the Lions are just the better team. They're just clearly the better team. I think the Lions have the best running back duo in the NFL. It reminds me of when the Browns had Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And even though they felt like two different running backs, you could put either one of them in any situation and they would be effective and produce. And when you have that, along with a quarterback who doesn't make mistakes and is efficient, Jared Goff, he didn't have the big numbers, didn't, he wasn't flashy, but he made the right decisions when he needed to. Um, I think this is just a really good team. I think whoever's calling their offense is really good at what they do. Their defense did kind of surprising. I thought they would give up some more points to Green Bay today, but they had a pick six. Um, I the Lions were just a better team. I think Jordan Love needs to take a second and actually take a game off while he's recovering from his hip injury, because you could see that the fact that he wasn't as mobile as he could be, it impacted his decision making. Like, I don't think he throws that pick six that he threw if he could have ran out the pocket and gotten away from the pressure.
Yeah.
But instead, he's like, "Oh, I can't move. Let me get rid of it." Makes a poor call and puts the ball in danger.
So both of these teams are in the coldest region. Both of these teams have to deal with weather. Not only like do they deal with weather, they have to deal with weather. The Lions have a dome, but like they're forced. Like it doesn't like going to practice could still be in -6 degree weather. Um, very very piss poor from the Packers to play that way at home, as far as the weather and conditions were concerned, because this is Green Bay. Like you're not gonna avoid it. You're gonna have four more games like today. May you might your next four home games might be like this. So I didn't really feel like they came as prepared. Jared Goff came prepared to throw in 40 mile per hour winds. He put gloves on for the first time today. He fought it with adversity. Had two successful touchdown drives. They controlled the game for most of the game. Defense controlled them. I do feel like Jordan Love was a little off and underprepared, but maybe it really was due to injury, which has a lot to do with your ready and preparedness. So why is he out there? Hey, the Lions are a better team. They came more prepared in somebody else's stadium. Not a good look when they go back home to their dome and it's gonna be pretty warm inside. And they treated you like that on your field in your weather conditions. That was a tough one for Green Bay, man.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, the Lions were missing Jamison Williams, who had a 2-game suspension. He's their deep threat. He's their over the top big play fast guy, and he got suspended for 2 games. I think he can come back next week. So that offense wasn't even at full strength, and still was able to produce pretty well today.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I think that wraps it up for today. What we have left is the Colts versus Vikings. That's actually going to get kicked off here pretty soon, which it should already have started, but maybe they have a delay. And we got Monday Night Football, the Bucks and the Chiefs. We're recording this on the Sunday. We are about to have a little powwow about exactly what we're going to be bringing you guys. We hope that you guys tap in with this as well. But this isn't my part of the show. El Boogie, can you take us out?
Once again, appreciate y'all tuning in to our podcast. Make sure you go watch El Boogie and the Bell on YouTube. Check out the clips on TikTok. We're gonna be generating some new content for y'all. So make sure you tap in, leave a like, leave a comment, and we'll see y'all back here next week.
Peace.